Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. It's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, A Box with No Lid. A channel I'm creating not just to bring the awareness around the lived reality complex trauma creates, removal and adoption trauma, but I also want to bring what I've learned through my own personal experiences and the many, many years of being a practitioner and an advocate in these areas. Now, this video is a little challenging to explain. And it takes a breadth of grace and understanding and hope that people can take it seriously, how much it means to those of us affected by it, and what difficulties and challenges it creates. Because so much in the world of adoption and foster care gets written off by just meaningless sentences put forward by social workers and psychiatrists and politicians and so forth, and just people in general that brush off the severity of impact so much or so many facets of this has upon those that live it every day. Now, take a moment and think about, those that aren't adopted and those that haven't gone through foster care. Think about your biological family, your mother, your father, your grandparents, your lineage, your culture, your ancestry, the countries they lived, what they did, how they lived, all the influences of your family that have led down to everything that shaped you and your life. There is thousands and thousands of pages worth of information if you typed it all out. There's a lot of emotions in that. When you look at family reunions and maybe at an airport and you see people greeting, all of these emotions are all part of this connection and identity of self, of being this person. When people are speaking languages and exploring their culture, expressing their culture, living their cultures, all of these components are all part of identity. In the world that is adoption, the whole process of adoption is designed to separate a child from all of that, to remove every connection of a child from their culture, their ancestry, their biological family, and everything that is contained within it. A lot of the past practices and even a lot of the practices today do everything to disrupt the ability to trace. Deliberate altering of dates, deleting of names, and altering of, legal documentation to make it almost impossible, or in many cases impossible, for that child down the road to ever search and find their family, their biological parents and siblings and so forth and so forth. That act means that there are many, many adoptees and many within the foster care system that the only cultural, familiar, biological family information, anything that they have as to why we were taken, why we were removed, why we were placed where we were placed, who we are and where we're from, and what our culture and our ancestry is and ancestries are, and so forth and so forth. All of that comes down to a couple of sentences, not even a complete paragraph. Many of us, like myself, the majority, like me, my pile of paperwork's that thick, but 99% of it's redacted. There's bits missing. Critical legal documents are not there. There was no Supreme Court documentation for my adoption. I was born in a car park from a service run out of a house. So many adoptions in the past have all these similar aspects of illegalities that no system will pursue. I gave evidence at two aspects of a federal Senate inquiry and a state inquiry into forced adoption. Gave this evidence forward and nothing was done. This is the thing of it. All of my identity, so many adoptees and those in foster care in the same situation as me, all of our identity, our culture, our ancestry, where we come from, is just a few lines broken up over several pages that we try to piece together. And that is all we have. So those metaphorical thousands of pages that people have out there of everything they know about their family tree, their culture, their history, their language, and their songs and stories, all of that, for us, our link to that is a couple of broken lines of text on a couple of pages. I want that understood. I want that seen and valued far more than most people will ever do. Most people just brush that off as, well, that's just the circumstances, deal with it, get over it. It was for your own good, move on. But that is who I am. That's my culture and my ancestry. When I got my few lines, when I finally broke through all the layers of crap to get, and all the money and time and effort to search and get as much information as I could. And by the grace of some people in the journey towards that, showed me things that they weren't allowed to see. It's the only reason I had the few lines of information that I had. I took that, sold and put every cent I had, got on a plane, went to America to try to start to find out how the hell I'm going to find my mom and dad. Completely naive, with no idea of what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. Like, I knew when I got off the plane in LA, and then very quickly ended up in the middle of the deserts of New Mexico, because part of that information is my mother ran from North Dakota down to New Mexico to get away from family violence, became a volunteer nurse, went to Vietnam. That's what I know pretty much of my mother. There are a few pieces of information that I will never say, because that's my checks and balances. For the numerous times that people have come forward exploring to see if I was their child that was taken. I spent months trying to find it here, and I traveled to this state, spent months there, spent a year over here doing this here, traveling backwards and forwards all over the shop, trying to find edges and pathways and ideas and information. Travel with veterans, travel with A members, travel with different natives of different tribal nations to mine, trying to find a path in. All of the time, bar some of the Vietnam vets, I was kept at arm's length, because I'm what's called white passing. Both my parents are mixed blood, so I don't have the dark skin. I don't have the complexion. That's a part of these two sentences. It's not my fault I was taken. I'm not looking to try to make a profit from a culture that my parents were born from. I'm trying to find my identity. And I know of many other mixed race indigenous adoptees that are in the same boat as me. We didn't choose and ask to be taken. We're still just trying to find our identity. I have known full-blood, Asian people that were taken Vietnam era. A lot of orphan children were taken out of Vietnam and adopted out in Australia. I've met several of them. I've met a Japanese adoptee, complete full-blood, went back to the village. They knew who her mother was, but because she was raised outside, she was never accepted. And both her parents were from that village. And because her father died, she was taken and given up for adoption. It's any old world culture that is lineage based, which all old world cultures are. They're ancestral based. There are members of the family that can recite the family tree back 1,000 or more years. All that information is kept from us. All that information by design of adoption is removed from us. And we're blocked from getting it. And in most instances, that is what we're expected to have to even begin to open the door to be able to be accepted into the communities that our family come from. To try to learn and awaken within us our own identity and learn who we are. Because in reality, it is the only way we can do it. The difficulty and the result of these challenges is so many of us end up peopleless, nationless. We end up in this void between cultures, not part of anything, doing everything we can to try to create an act worthy of being accepted. I've known several. I've got a few people that are constantly in my mind. One is a mixed race Aboriginal guy over here in Australia. All he does is throw everything he has at trying to help people, and he's treated, lower than dirt. My own experience is similar. I know so many that all we're trying to do is to do something worthy and good enough that we will be accepted as part of a culture, as part of home and part of our belonging, to finally find that place where we are our home. That is a reality that faces hundreds and hundreds of thousands of adoptees. When you look at 60s Scoop and Stolen Generation and all the colonized countries where mixed race indigenous kids from those countries were removed en masse for adoption and foster care and placed out into the system. When you look at all the times through, history in World War One, World War Two, and so forth, Vietnam, Korea, those conflicts, all the orphans and the kids that were taken out of there, the babies that were conceived from the soldiers that were fighting there, from the women of that country, were taken and placed in adoption and foster care. There are so many paths to this situation, and there are so many of us that experience it. And those of us, there are some that they can embrace a Western society and they're perfectly happy that way. But there are those of us that we are so alien to that way of thinking that we will never fit in, no matter how hard we want to and how hard we try. And all we have is a couple of sentences. And I want to make this video with the hope of just bringing that understanding forward. We're not there to take anything from our culture. We're just there to awaken our own identity within it, our own family within it. And I want the grace and that understanding to go out into the world in the hope that it takes root and becomes the potential for some. As hard as this video is for me personally to do, and I've resisted doing this video for a while, but I've been reminded recently, as I said, that there's a couple of people that I personally know, they're in a really not so great spot, and it's because of this that they have nothing else to fall back on. And I now have to make this video to bring this awareness out, because I need to get this out of my own system, because it directly relates to me as well. We're not trying to take anything from anyone. We're just trying to learn who we are and how to be part of it. How to be welcomed home into our belonging and our culture and our family, regardless of what that culture is. I really hope, and thank you all of you for your time, I really hope this makes sense and it is taken in the context that I'm saying it in. Please be mindful, please be respectful, and I'll see you all next time. Hope.